Session of day 4. It is on microsystems manufacturing. It is to be delivered by Dr. Jaspreet Singh from HCL Mohali. So I request Dr. Manish ji to kindly introduce the speaker to the audience. So over to you.
Thank you, Professor Arun, to giving me opportunity to introduce Dr. Jaspreet Singh, one of my good friend and our colleagues. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce you our next speaker of the day, Dr. Jaspreet Singh. Dr. Jaspreet Singh is a well-known personality in the field of MEMS technology, design technology, and development. I would say he is the only one personality in India who is really converting the MEMS device from prototype to mass fabrication with a good yield. So he is the man who is behind making it possible that yes, MEMS device can be fabricated in a very big way with a good yield. With this, Dr. Jaspreet Singh, I would like to say, is currently working as a head of MEMS Fabrication Division in Semiconductor Laboratory, SCL, Department of Space. He has obtained his PhD degree from Indian Institute of Sciences in 2014. He is graduate in mechanical engineering. I would say he is a ex-alumni of is a alumni of Punjab Engineering College itself. He did his MTech in 2005 from PEC. Thereafter, he joined as a Vikram Sarabhai Space Center (VSSC) in 2005 and has been involved in the quality assurance of launch vehicle (PSLV) GSLV Mark III from July 2006 onward. He is working in the area of micro sensors, nano sensors development, design and development at Semiconductor Laboratory (SCL). He is having more than 14 years of experience in the field of MEMS design and microfabrication in various MEMS devices encompassing physical, chemical, inertial, and biological sensors. He has more than 20 publications, international publication on his credit. And particularly, he has filed three patents in association with the PGI and BioMEMS field, device field. He is supervising many PhD scholars here and also examining act as an examiner of the PhD scholars. He is associated with various strategic departments for development of indigenization of the devices for the country use. His main area of research are micro and nano sensors, thin film, advanced NEMS fabrication processes, and biocompatible material. With this, I request Dr. Jaspreet to share his knowledge with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Manish. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Manish and Professor Arun for giving me the nice opportunity to discuss and to share our working, what we are doing currently at SCL. So today's the topic which I think I am going to speak is about MEMS, that is microsystems manufacturing. And the overall presentation I have categorized into 3, 4, 5 categories that I will start initially with brief introduction to IC fabrication technology and then particularly about the MEMS and then these microsystems applications and further I will go ahead with the current MEMS fabrication technologies which in India as well as globally we are working. And finally, then at SCL, what are our capabilities in the field of MEMS and what we have a little bit done in this area and the products which we have delivered, which may be some of the products which we have already delivered, fully qualified and which are still under R&D stage. Okay, so I'll start with the parent of MEMS, which we start like the technology from where this thing has come, this MEMS technology has come. So it was the early 1949 when the first junction transistor was invented by the Bell Labs, and a new revolution has come in the field of semiconductor manufacturing. And after that, it was too rapid progress has happened in the field of semiconductor, which we all know right now. The first one, the microprocessor, which in 1971, which Intel has invented, was 4-bit 745 kilohertz microprocessor. And now we know in today's present day, we have submicronic integrated circuits which consist of several million CMOS transistors, and the speed We know, you all very well know the minimum dimensions where now currently we are working, which earlier when the first microprocessor was started was of few microns, and now it is even 10 nanometer to 1 nanometer also. If you five atoms spacing 1 nanometer, also we are now the R&D is under progress, and the commercial products of around 10 to 25 nanometers are already there in the market. So this technology has, as we all know, it has given enormous benefits and countless benefits to the society, economic benefits, societal benefits. From this technology we have gained, and further this technology only has not given us the microelectronics, but various spin-offs, various derivatives have come from this technology, whether it is the gallium arsenide devices or the like solar fab and all where we are working, whether it is GaN devices. I think this talk already we had seen in our previous lectures day before yesterday. My colleague has given on these aspects also. Then microsystem technology, which we will discuss today, the technology, because this also is one of the spin-off technology which has come from semiconductor manufacturing. Then the further, like in the microelectronics, there is a Moore's law that every 24 months the number of devices are doubling. So similarly, here also the people are not stopping just at micro devices. Now people are going for the nano devices, nanotechnology also. And further, another technology which is, you can say, is a derivative of MEMS is the lab on chip, which has huge societal benefit in the medical field, which we will a little bit will talk during our presentation. Yeah. So now coming to the second part is the miniaturization of mechanical systems, because till now what we are working, what we are talking is about the electronic systems or the electronics things. So why we are going for the miniaturization of the mechanical systems? What was the need? Why it has come? What motivation is there which has evolved this technology, which is the miniaturization of the mechanical systems? So if we'll see that the very much thing which will come in our minds when we are talking about micros is it has a smaller size, and definitely when the size is smaller, it will be having lower weight, so it is lighter, easy to pick, lower inertia, mechanical inertia, more energy efficient. This we will talk later, how the smaller things are more efficient. Right now we can understand it like that. When the smaller thing is there, we require lower power to drive it. So they are, in that sense, they are more energy efficient. They are constructed with fewer material. Definitely when it is a smaller thing, we require smaller material, lesser materials. So if we compare with the macro devices, what advantages we will get with the miniaturization? These devices are highly reliable, they are efficient, their performance is better, response time is better, energy consumption wise means energy, they will consume less power, less energy. Okay, so how they are energy efficient or how they are efficient, this I think we can understand by one of the example, that the pressure transducers, early days people were using strain gauges. Even now also people are using strain gauges for in the electrical domain for pressure measurement. So there, whenever we have to measure, or we have to measure the pressure of around, say, for example, say 1 bar pressure we have to measure, then the technology which they are using is a piezoresistive technology. Their strain gauges are based on the basic piezoresistive technology, that is, the resistance will change whenever a load is applied over the thin diaphragm. Usually in strain gauges we have SS diaphragms, and whenever this diaphragm will bend, So the resistance will change due to the geometrical effects. The resistance of the strain gauges will change due to the geometrical effects, and that can be calibrated with the pressure or force, whatever the measure end which we are going to measure. So here, in that particular examples, the power requirements, the voltage requirements are about 10 volts and higher, 12 volts, 10 volts, like that. They require initial that much power is required to drive to that Wheatstone bridge configuration or whatever the method, the topology they are using. But the same counterpart, if we'll see when we are going for the microelectronics technology, means micro electromechanical systems, when we'll go. So here the voltages where we are working is just about 2 to 3 volts, even sometimes 1.5 volt also. And we are getting better outputs, and that output further can be rectified with the electronics, with the microelectronics. And then we have the performance is super duper as compared to their initial strain gauges. In the initial strain gauges, we are talking about the linearity hysteresis of 1%. Here, if you see the state of the art pressure transducers, which we are currently available in the market, which are of MEMS base, we are getting about 0.01 or even lower accuracies, 0.01 or even less than that percent of full scale accuracies we are getting. So that is the advantage, that is the benefit which we are getting from such sensors or from the such technology. So further, okay. So then now we understood, okay, the miniaturization will help us in reducing the weight, in reducing the cost. Why cost? That we'll discuss, because this is all batch production things which we are talking, similar to the microelectronic semiconductor fabrication. So, but now, okay, now actually first let us describe MEMS, how we can describe MEMS, what is MEMS technology. So the acronym is basically here, it is micro electromechanical systems. So micro deals with the size, that is basically the features which we are talking here on the in the devices, in the MEMS based devices. They are in the range of 1 micron to few hundred of micron, or sometimes in the millimeter range also. Then electromechanical, basically these two domains in which these things are working. Either it is a conversion of electrical signal to the mechanical, or mechanical to electrical. So both things are possible with the MEMS. When we are converting from mechanical to electrical or any physical, the more generic term is physical, so physical signal to electrical signal, then they are called sensors, as in our conventional terminology also. And when we are talking the vice versa, that means the electrical signal into some physical signal, in some mechanical signals, then it is called the actuator. So both MEMS will work for both type of things. For in case of sensors, it will give us the electrical output, and in case of actuators, it will take electrical input, and the desired output will be in form of any displacement or any mechanical signals. So systems, why it is called systems? Because it is a complete thing. It is by itself, it is a complete. Like some people use the terminology transducers. So what are transducers? Transducers is having a sensor along with the electronics, the complete signal conditioning electronics. So the complete system is basically a transducer. So here, if we'll go for macro theory, then what we have to do? We have to first make sensor. We have to use separate signal conditioning electronics, and then we'll get the complete system. But in case of MEMS, the advantage is we can club the signal conditioning electronics along with the sensor or the actuator or transducer, whatever is there. So it can be clubbed on a single substrate, and your complete solution you will get on a single small chip, which is of few MMs. You can get the complete system in that. So that's why it is a system. It is a complete system by itself. So various definitions are there for the MEMS, but in general, if we'll define what is MEMS, so MEMS is basically an integration of mechanical systems, which include sensors and actuators and electronics on a common silicon substrate through the utilization of IC fabrication technology. So, here the catching point is the mechanical elements, because other things we are getting in the microelectronics also, but here the thing which is now added is the mechanical elements, which totally changes the story of the microelectronics things. Though it will take the advantages of all microelectronics, but finally it will add up lot of new technologies because of this particular underlying thing, that is the mechanical elements. How to make these mechanical elements? You have different backgrounds. Persons are required from mechanical, from materials, from mathematics, and so many things. So that's why this complete MEMS is always called an interdisciplinary field. It is not like electronics. It is not only for mechanical. It is an interdisciplinary field where microsensors, microactuators, microelectronics, microstructures, everything work together and we'll get a complete solution, complete system. This technology is also known by some other names. In European countries, they will call it as a microsystem technology. If we'll go to the Japan side, they will call it as a micro machines. And MEMS is a very common, which is I think more than 70% of the world. They are using the MEMS terminology. And in India, people call also smart materials and smart systems also is the name which is given to the same technology of MEMS. Okay. How small are MEMS? Now we are talking about MEMS, but let us having some physical picture in our mind that when I am talking a MEMS system, so how big it is or how small it is. So in this picture, this I have taken from one of the very good presentations by SCME. So they have given a comparison between macro, micro and nano. So a standard light, so these all are changed with the latest technology of safe bulbs. So this is around like they are saying it is around 8 centimeter, and this is a MEMS. Okay, this is MEMS gear tooth. It's not a gyroscope. So this gear tooth is made. You see the dimensions which he is mentioning is around 8 micron wide. So this is a typical example and very initial devices which were fabricated using one of the technology called surface micro machining in MEMS. So they have developed these devices in the MEMS field. So in MEMS means this gear train, this is basically a gear train. So this gear train they have fabricated, and the dimensions you see it is around in some few microns. And definitely when we are going for nano, then we are talking about nano dots and all gold dots. So here the dimensions are of 15 nanometer and so. So if we'll see the MEMS regime lies basically nearly from sub-micron to mm size. Okay, few hundred of micron we can say. So in this, because this is very rough this thing, sometimes it can exceed here and sometimes it can be on the lower size also sometimes. But okay, the rough idea is usually from 100 micron to 1 mm, that is 100 nanometer to 1 mm, usually we call it as a MEMS. So MEMS doesn't mean that complete system will be micro size. There will be the elements which are of micron size, and they are clubbed, they are integrated on the die and the complete die may be of a few mm, like 1, 2 or 3, 4, 5, sometimes even 10 mm also in some typical examples, but mostly like 70 to 80%, it is around 2 to 3 mm the die size. And some now people even have with the latest technologies and all, they have reduced to 1 mm die size also. So what are the advantages of MEMS? Anyway, we have already discussed during miniaturization, but particularly when I'm talking MEMS, now we understood what is MEMS. So MEMS is a combination of electronics, microelectronics and micromechanical systems. So that means now this MEMS, first of all, we have to understand this MEMS technology has come from the semiconductor fabrication technology. So, and we are using most of the established technologies only, and even the most of the established materials, processing materials. So here the major thing which has come here is the silicon substrate on which we are developing our all sensors or systems, actuators, whatever we are making. So it is a common platform which is being used already in the electronic industry, means in the microelectronics, and now same thing has come in the MEMS. Why silicon? Because this was, I think, during the 1980s when Peterson has, Peterson has published, I think, very classical paper is available, silicon as a mechanical material. So he has totally opened a new era where brilliant properties of silicon he has made aware to the people that the silicon, like if you see the like Young's modulus of silicon, it is comparable to stainless steel, around 200 gigapascals and so, and it is lighter than the aluminium. Its thermal coefficient is even better than the other comparable materials, and then this material means early days it was think silicon is like totally suitable for microelectronics only, but with this invention or with this discovery of the mechanical properties by Kurt Peterson, so total thinking of the mankind has changed. And then after that 1980s, if you see, lot of development activities have happened, lot of mainly in the field of sensors, where astonished things have come up which we have never thought of, that they can, even not only the devices but the technologies have come up with the invention of these things. So the crux of the story is that because we are using the silicon material, so silicon already is well established in the IC fabrication. So same thing we have taken to the MEMS or the microsystem technology. So we can club both the things on the same substrate. That is basically called the monolithic integration, which is not possible till date with any other material. That is one of the major advantage for going to MEMS. This monolithic integration can be done with on a hybrid level also, discrete level also, or on a single substrate also. Usually monolithic word we use when it is on a same substrate. So yes, if somebody will ask, is it possible with MEMS? Yes, it is possible. Monolithic integration is possible because silicon as a substrate is being used, which has both very good electrical properties and marvelous mechanical properties. Better performance than counterparts, this already we had discussed, like when we have discussed the example of pressure transducers. So we are getting an accuracy is much superior than the macro counterparts like the strain gauges. Similarly, in field of accelerometers, gyroscopes, whatever, like early days that dynamic tune gyroscopes people were using, they are quite big in size, and but still their bias stabilities are of few degrees per second. But when the MEMS DTGs or DRGs have come into the picture, so the total performance scenario has changed. Now the ultimate bias stability of 0.01 degree or 0.1 degree per second bias stability we are able to achieve. Batch production, yes, because it is a silicon, it is developed on the silicon wafers, so it is allowing the batch production. Due to batch production only, the next advantage is there, which is the low cost per die. Initial costs definitely are high for MEMS to establish this facilities, and because this semiconductor industry, anyway we know initial costs are always high, so same is true in the case of MEMS also. But because of the batch or the mass production, the per die cost is reducing. Like the pressure sensors, dyes, if you today you procure from the market, they are available even less than $1 price. Okay, so like that 35 from 40 rupees we are getting this pressure sensors. So even RTDs, temperature sensors, MEMS based RTDs or sensors, so they are available at very low cost. Why this thing has come? This is because of the batch production. Smart systems on chip have performance. Okay, so because multiple things can be clubbed together, they can make a smart. And then lower power consumption and increased portability. Yes, they take less power for driving. They don't require, and even now with the advent of new materials like aluminum nitride and zinc oxide and other piezoelectric materials, we can go for energy harvesting, and self-powered devices can be made. So which has anyway has opened a new era, which has opened a new path for the self-powered devices for wearable electronics and other things, for IoTs and other things. We will see later in the slides. Improved reliability. So reliability initially was questionable in case of MEMS because that confidence was not there with those devices, but because from last 3 to 4 decades now, so many devices have come in the market and they have been used. So now this reliability question is also being very nicely addressed. And early days people were saying MEMS devices may or may not be reliable, but now with the experience, now yes, they are saying this, because the major example to show the reliability is when the components are being used in the space industry, because in space you cannot tolerate 99.999% reliable products. Their 100% reliability is must. So because now these things are, even NASA has long back adopted the MEMS devices. Even our ISRO programs, we are now using our indigenized in-house developed MEMS devices. So, and we have tested those devices in the space, and we are getting very good, even this sometimes the superior performances in case of our MEMS devices. Then coming to the MEMS applications, what MEMS can do, what MEMS cannot do. Okay, this is very hard. I haven't till now I haven't found anything which MEMS cannot do. Though MEMS can do, maybe with some little bit constraints, but yes, MEMS can do everything, I can say. So okay, the basic like I have classified all these things into the like 4 particular things. Not I have classified, there's a standard available if you can see the MEMS literature. So MEMS can do sensing, MEMS can do the act of think, they can communicate, they can act. So all these things can be done by MEMS. See, let us see how. MEMS can sense. Yes, MEMS can sense, because MEMS sense, basically if we'll convert, it is a sensor. So what a sensor will do, any physical signal which is coming, it should convert into some readable output or in some readable manner, so that our, like we have 5 sensing organs in our body. So these how these are working, we like this is also very, I think very much whenever I think about these things, I'll really bow my head towards God, that how our body has been made. This is really a good, very, I cannot say very good or brilliant. It is no words are there which the God has made our body. Like we can sense, see, we can very beautifully we can sense if any bad smell is there, good smell is there. We can even touch our brain so fast, all our signals are working. So these all are basically like these are 5 sensory organs. So they are the creation. So like the human always learn from the nature. So these MEMS sensors also are being evolved in such a way that we are from this learning only we are seeing, okay, these things also can be made in an artificial manner. So this sense, how this sense will act when whenever any physical thing it will say, it will convert into some readable, or you can say some understandable thing. So if it is a movement, yes, we have the position sensor, displacement sensors. Vibration, yes, vibration can be sensed with using various principles. It can be converted into the readable electrical signals. Pressure, definitely, either it is a piezoresistive technology or it is a capacitive technology. So these sensors can sense the pressures, can sense the light, temperature. These are very few things. There are hundred of things which can be sensed. Then next, coming to the thinking ability. So this, I think, will be get more clear by seeing this particular photograph. So here, if you see, these are in the mechanical terminology, these things are called cantilevers, which is having one end fixed and one end free. So these type of beam structures are called cantilevers. So these are very thin MEMS cantilevers. So what is depicted in this picture is, so these very light molecules are there. When these molecules sit on this cantilevers, they are having like this green thing is some receptive layer. When they sit on this, what will happen? Some mechanical thing will change, some mechanical signal will generate. Now how that thing will generate? Either it will, these cantilevers will deflect, or if they are already moving at some frequency, so that frequency of movement will change. That is usually the principle of resonators. And if nothing is happening, if deflection is so small, then we can use some light sources so that the deflection of this light will change. So I can detect if these few atoms or molecules, or if they are getting and sitting on these cantilevers, so I can sense those things. And not only sense, I can convert that things, and I can classify those things, that what are those molecules based upon their available atomic weights. This is just one example I am giving. So here in this image, in this photograph, what we are trying to show, it can collect the information, it can analyze, because it is a complete system. As I have already mentioned, MEMS is a complete system. So complete system is there, which can the sense, which can take decision, and based upon the data analysis, and then it will give the feedback to make, if it is a closed loop system, it can give a feedback, and it will react to change. Another thing, the major thing which MEMS can do is the communicate. Yes. So now if you correlate these two images, so here we are put, it is in this figure, it is shown a tire. So in this tire, they are showing one small blue color element. So let us think, or let us assume that this is a pressure sensor. So if this pressure sensor is sitting inside the tube and in the tire, and then I want to measure that, I want to continuously monitor what is the pressure of the tire, so that like with the days it is reducing, and reducing means at particular level, if it is crossing, then I can go to the tire pressure vendor, and I can ask him to, okay, you just fill the air. Just because right now what we are doing majorly by looking physically, okay, my tire is get pressed, and but suppose if I have to put inbuilt pressure sensor, so that my pressure is continuously monitored, which is already now, as US regulations, transport regulations, they have make it mandatory. They are not clearing the vehicle if the pressure sensor is not there. TPMS, we call it as tire pressure monitoring system. So if TPMS is not there, the vehicle is not being cleared by the US authorities. So because their speed limits and everything is very high, so they cannot tolerate these pressure deviations, because very fatal accidents had happened due to which this thing they have make it mandatory. So in India also, maybe in a few years, I think we can have all this TPMS. Right now it is there, but not in all the vehicles. So the thing is, now suppose pressure sensor is kept here, then how I will get the data? On my dashboard, I want to see what is the pressure, how I can get. So that solution also is provided by MEMS only. So we can have MEMS based transmitters and receivers, and with the any RF frequency range, and then it can, because we'll see in the MEMS there is one domain called RF MEMS, which totally deals with the miniaturization of all microwave elements. So that thing is also possible with MEMS, because like RF switches, we have inductors, resonators, so many things are there. So MEMS can communicate, means it can send information, it can provide input, it can transmit data, it can provide warning. Warning is based upon based upon the thinking capability, because on the feedback loop. Then it can act. So this is very common example is our DMDs, which are these projectors and all. So they will reflect the light, and so now these days we are getting so good resolutions on the projectors and all. So this is all due to the MEMS technology. Okay, so in the various field, I'll just touch upon where the MEMS is there. So you can see in the consumer electronics, if you'll see, we have smart watches, we have smartphones, smart glasses. Okay, these are not very common in India, but yes, in other countries they are there. So how these things have evolved, because how now this is this is an era, you can say, when people are very much worried about their health. They're very health conscious. They want to know, okay, how much calories I had burned today, okay, how much steps I have walked today, and then other things, everything, how these things are possible in the very small like smart watches, how these things are possible. This everything is got possible due to the advent of this technology only. So if you see in a small smartwatch, there are numerous sensors are there sitting inside, which are having, like even now recently the ECG things also is possible with your smartwatch. Heart rate monitors are there. So how these things are working, like pulse sensors and all, they put accelerometers and gyroscope for detecting the position, even magnetometer also for the position. You have pressure sensors, ambient temperature sensor, it can tell the body temperature, and if outside is very warm, it will give the alarm. Even the same sensor, most of the sensors are same in your smart phones also. So these all things, how these things have come up, the thing is, it is only because of these microsystems. Now, secondly, the major market share where these MEMS can be seen is the automotive industry. So here, if you see in any vehicle, early days it was very less, but now the very basic example is now airbags. So these airbags are there; they are safety devices. So now I think it is mandatory in all the vehicles in India also to having the airbag. So these airbags sensors, if you see, they are nothing but the MEMS or the microsystems based accelerometers. Then this is just one example. There are, like on the engine control unit, there are pressure sensors, the high temperature pressure sensors, which continuously monitor the air fuel ratio, maintain the air fuel ratio. There's a lot of magnetic sensors are there, and temperature sensors, which are continuously monitoring the oil temperature, coolant temperature, fuel temperature, etc. Then airbag, and we have told, then engine manifold pressure, tire pressure, we have already discussed, night vision sensors. Even more than 100 sensors are there. Early days, these sensors and all things were there only in the posh vehicles only, like BMW or Porsche or Audi and other things. But now it is not the case. The sensors, because of this mass production, batch production only, because the costs are not so high. So these sensors are being embedded or implemented in this. And I think you might have heard about this driverless cars concept. So this concept, how it is working, how it has come into the existence, is because of this micro technology only, microsystem technology only. So because these sensors are put in such a way, and they are all that related electronics, and that artificial intelligence is working in so cohesive manner that even now no driver is required, and the car will take its own decision based upon the how much speed they have to, it has to move, which gear it should work, and then if pit is coming, how to reduce the speed. Automatically the speed get reduced. And so in automatic vehicles, in automatic, like they are called driverless cars. So there also two categories are there. One is fully automatic and another is the semi-automatic. So in semi-automatic, like driver has to be there, but for the starting and stopping of the vehicle, but other decisions the car will take or the vehicle will take by itself based upon the sensors. There are also hundred of sensors are there in those cars, the vehicles. Then the next area where this MEMS sensors have mushroomed in a very enormous way, they are the biomedical. So biomedical side also, if you see, because either it is in vitro or it is in vivo. If these sensors, particularly in vivo, that means when the sensor has to go inside the body, definitely size has to be small. You cannot tolerate bigger sensors, bigger systems to put in the body. So this technology has given a solution for those things also. Like this particular example, which is shown here in this figure. So in the lens itself, if you see very small thing, this is a pressure sensor for the glaucoma patients. So they will, like, the pressure has to be continuously monitored of the eye. So in this is an implantable pressure sensor. Its size is around 0.5 mm by 0.5 mm. And so that you can put in the clinician will put into your lens, and you can monitor the pressure and other things continuously. Similarly, pacemakers are like inserted in the heart, and they are nothing but the MEMS accelerometers. So they are also very small, very tiny in size. So if you see the very early days, when people were they having a hearing problem, they were putting a very big dabba on in their ear, and then that has to be like, it has to capped with them, that so that so everybody was knowing, okay, who is like hearing problem. So like that he can see from. But now with the advent of this technology, you see this, the device is so small, people have wear it or not, you cannot see. And because early days people were having that hesitation. Oh, if I wear, people will tell me I am having a hearing disability or something like that. So people were not wearing also. But now with the advent of this technology, so small miniaturized sensors, even people don't know, other people cannot recognize, they cannot know, okay, you are wearing some hearing this thing device or not. So these are micro cantilevers. These are basically for the detection of various your antibody. Basically, it will work for as a biomarkers. So this particular figure shows the biomarker of cancers, that how they can detecting. So they will coat with the particular antibodies, and then the antigens will come into here, and then the particular deflection will come. So with the data, then they will correlate, okay, if this much deflection is there, and this is with the particular combination of antigen and antibody, so this will be a malignant or cancerous thing or non-cancerous thing. So like that, these MEMS based cantilevers are being used as a biomarker. And you will be really surprised to know that these sensors, these cantilevers today, they can measure up to the range of like attograms. Also we can detect attogram loading, also we can detect with the advent of this MEMS and MEMS technology. Then the other area where MEMS has given a great relief, I can say, is the space, because here weight is the one of the prime concern. So the weight, the overall mass of their system, because a launch vehicle is consist of 100 of subsystems are sitting there, mainly electronics and other things. So many things are there. So there is always a tendency. There is always I can say there is always a requirement to reduce the overall weight of the system so that I can increase my payload. Payload, what is a payload? Payload is basically the sitting inside a satellite, which is basically which gives us benefits, basically like communication payloads are there and other things are there. So basically they are the desired things. So because, and if my undesired weight, if undesired weight is too big, then I cannot have my desired weight more. So if I have to increase this capacity, so there are two things. One is I will build up rocket technology in such a way so that it can take very big weights to the space. The another way is I will reduce this weight, overall weight, so that more weight can be taken, means more payloads can be taken to the space. So MEMS is one of the answer to this technology, because here there are 100 of transducers, 100 of sensors are there which are sitting inside the launch vehicle. I have shown in different with different colors. So these are like for staging. Staging is called basically like each stage. This is a photo of GSLV Mark III. So where these two are strap-ons, and we have a one and two stages are there, and then this is a heat shield in which our satellite is sitting. So these stages are getting strapped off during the launch. When this launch vehicle will go, so they are with this time, the first stage will get strapped off, then second stage, and third. Finally, when it will go to the actual orbit, so it will be left only with this thing. So this staging, to know all this, when this stage separation will occur, so you want to continuously, we have to monitor all the various parameters, like what is the force exerted, what are the tensions, strains, acceleration. So many parameters are there which are continuously being monitored. So how to monitor those things? We have to put the sensors. So these sensors, if their weight is small, then definitely I can overall increase my payload weight. So here these sensors are, so if MEMS sensors are put, like I'll give a typical example of a pressure transducer. So the pressure transducer, the normal conventional pressure transducer weight is around 2 to 3 kilograms. And when you are going for the MEMS system, so the MEMS pressure sensor, the weight will be of few hundred grams, because it is having some other SS parts, and also die weight is few milligrams, but because when it is associated with the electronics and other system, so the complete will be of few hundred, like 200, 300 grams weight will be there. So you see how much, and satellite cost is around 20,000 US dollar per kg. So if I am able to reduce 1 kg, that means I am saving a cost of around 20,000 US dollar. So that is the advantage which we are getting with these MEMS components. Similarly, like staging, propulsion, pyro systems, tankages, to know the level flow and other things, control systems. So there are 100 of sensors are there which are continuously working during the launch, in the launch vehicle. And if we are able to reduce this weight, then the desired weight, that the desired thing, that payload I can increase. Okay, so the last in this section is the MEMS and IoT. So MEMS, anyway, now we have already seen from the previous slides that conventional MEMS has been widely used in either automation or aeronautics, consumer electronics, defense, industrial manufacturing, medical equipment, life science, telecommunication. But the next thing is now, next era of MEMS has come now. So this next era of MEMS is basically the artificial intelligence, virtual reality, IoT. Okay, you give it any name. So for this particular applications, for this particular domain, MEMS is really a very main or major building block for this technology, because this artificial intelligence and other thing, every on it they will come if you are having a smart systems, and this smartness will come, is smartness of the systems will come only with this MEMS or NEMS technology, because already we had discussed as earlier that because this technology is basically is not only mechanical, the other fields are already there. So if you see the development trend in this future MEMS sensors from 1915 to till date, so earlier all these sensors independently they have worked very beautifully, and now they are, most of the products are already commercialized. And if you see for the IoT and other things, there are I think three major sensors are there. Like one is the physical sensor, acoustic, and gas sensor. So this they can give us the particular requirement. They can meet our particular requirement for these IoT applications. And for like artificial intelligence and all, like machine learning and other things, we require here like yeah, okay. So before going to that, okay, the one thing is like wearable electronics. Okay, the wearable flexible wearable electronics. So there also wearable sensors, or you can say. So there the major requirement is that self-powered, because now the major problem which people are facing is because they are not self-powered devices. You have to put some battery or something, and that battery will got exhausted. You have to again charge it or something like that. So can we produce this type of devices which can make it self-powered, means no need of charging and other things? Yes, that answer is given by MEMS. Yes, we can make energy harvesting devices using MEMS technology. Already lot of research has happened in this area and still is happening in the energy harvesting area. Like people are making like piezoelectric cantilevers or other things. People are making using this technology, and they are giving the answer for the self-powered devices. And this is one of the basic requirement for all this IoT or AI based technologies. So MEMS is giving us that particular advantage also in the next advancement or the future things. So coming to the MEMS fabrication technology, how MEMS are fabricated. Okay, now we understood, till now we have understood how this technology has come, and what is this technology, and what are the applications, what we are getting benefits from this technology. But now, okay, let us take a little bit feel that how these tiny sensors are being manufactured. What are the things like, okay, we know, okay, this has come from IC fabrication technology, but it is not only the IC fabrication technology. There are lot of other advancements, other developments have happened, which made this complete microfabrication technology in its own. It has been made a full technology itself. So how this is a typical cycle. I actually try to show that how these MEMS devices are being fabricated or developed. So our basic starting material is 70 to 80% times it is a silicon wafer, but nevertheless it is not only silicon wafer. MEMS is not limited only for silicon wafers. Here other substrates, other materials are also there. People are working with glass substrates also for some applications, and some other things also. So but 70-80% it is always the silicon wafer is to start with. Other wafers will be bonded together or to make a complete system, like glass wafers and all, that will be a complete. So silicon wafer is taken. So major three steps, which these three steps are basically coming from your standard IC fabrication technology only. Thin film deposition, lithography, that is the transfer design pattern. So independently, the designer is working, and he will, based upon the inputs from the foundry, they will design, and that design is converted into the mask sets, particular mask sets, and those mask sets will be used to fabricate, to define the actual dimensions on the actual wafer, on the actual silicon wafer. So and these are all so the two arrows shows these are multiple times. It is not okay, one one one. It is not like that. So these steps will go around and around. Sometimes, like a typical example, if I give a typical acoustic sensor example, if we'll take, so around 200 to 300 minute steps are there to fabricate a acoustic sensor chip. So all, but they are like a repetition. So total, so that much is steps, or that much processes are involved. So, but basically, okay, if you categorize them, it is a thin film deposition. Lithography means the converting your actual mask, that's shapes or sizes to over the wafer, and then etching of particular insulating or dielectric layers. So after this your wafer will come and it will having a complete devices here. So in between also, with the inline metrology, we'll continuously monitoring the various parameters like thicknesses and other sheet resistances and so many parameters. And after that also, at wafer level, characterization is carried out. And once it is passed, means it is like red is showing bad dyes, green is showing good dyes, something like that. So after this characterization, then it will go for the back-end operations. So in back-end operation, there will be like optical inspection of the wafer, and then cutting, because this is a complete silicon wafer on which we are getting 100 of devices. So each devices has to be segregated. So that for that we are using mechanical dicing, or now here also a lot of technologies have come. So laser dicing, mechanical dicing and all. So even, but till date, the majority of the dicing is being by the cutter sawing operation only with the cutters. So so this is the dicing operation. It's called dicing operation, to separate out each die, and then these dies are put on the headers packages, and with some die attached materials, and then the pads connections have been taken to the pins with a specialized process of wire bonding. And then after that the device can be put with the signal conditioning electronics. If it is not there monolithically, then we have to separately over a chip, over a PCB or some other ceramic substrate or whatever we have to put here. And the complete transducer, means the sensor with the electronics, complete transducer is ready. And then definitely it has to go for various reliability, quality tests, and then it is ready for final delivery. So the basic IC processing steps involves like thin film growth and deposition, photolithography, etching and planarization, impurity doping using by in situ phosphorus doping in the furnace, or by the implantation. Then there are some allied processes like annealing, driving processes, stripping of the photoresist, cleaning, etc. So these are the basic IC processing steps which have been taken from the IC industries as it is. But these are not sufficient to make a MEMS device, because MEMS is having a mechanical component also. So how to fabricate that mechanical component? There are few processes which have evolved, and they have again particularly put in the categories. They are called these techniques. Basically, these techniques are called surface micromachining, bulk micromachining, and Liga processes. And now one more thing has added, that is the non-conventional machining methods also have come. So which covers in Liga and some other few things also. So, but broadly, if we classify according to the textbook theory, they will tell, okay, the MEMS fabrication processes can be classified into these three basic categories: surface micro machine, development machine, and Liga processes. So, what are these? Okay, let us see what are these processes. Okay, surface micro machining. Surface micro machining is basically similar to your planar IC processing technology. Why it is called surface? Because all the devices or the elements which mechanical elements which we are making, they are on the surface of the silicon substrate. And this is also called additive technology. Additive because here in this particular technology we are not at all etching the silicon, means we are not at all disturbing the carrier silicon, carrier wafer silicon. Everything what has to be made will be made over the silicon substrate surface. Okay, so that's why it is a planar technology, and it is made over, and no silicon will be consumed in this particular micro machining technology. That's why it is called additive process also. What are the advantages? Okay, we will see just in the next slide that what are the various fabrication steps in this. Okay, then in this it is a batch process. That anyway it is very clear because our complete wafer only we are processing. So it is a batch process. Multiple devices can be made in a single wafer. Low cost, definitely low cost per die we are getting. And because no new technologies are added, so this is a low cost technique. And high precisions we can get like surface micro machine accelerometers and all, if you'll see. So they are really because why high precision is one of the reason of high precision is because of the compatibility with the IC fabrication, because monolithically you can integrate the sensor with the IC, so your all parasitics effects or parasitic losses, they will all drastically they will reduce. No interconnects, no physical interconnects are required, so you will get higher accuracy and precision in the monolithically integrated devices. So like in the accelerometers and all, we are measuring a signal, the change in the capacitance of attofarads or femtofarads. So if we are using your interconnects, wired interconnects, so that itself has having a much more higher capacitance changes. So our actual signal will always lose. So accordingly, you have to change either with your sensor thing or then electronics. So sophisticated electronics is required, which can measure. So, but these things can be get rid of if we are using the surface micro machining, because we can integrate. You can club the IC and your MEMS sensor on a same substrate. This technology was first reported in 1965 on a resonant gate transistor by Nathanson, but at that time it was not promoted so rigorously because it was not a complete like MEMS device. But it has come into the market when the first MEMS device has come in 1988. That was by the UC Berkeley. They have invented a electrostatic micromotor with that gears and all. And finally, actually, this is an R&D level, but actual device, monolithic device has come by the analog devices. They have produced a commercial integrated accelerometer, which even today it is there in the market. And this particular device has extremely promoted this surface micro machining technology. So here definitely challenges are there, though advantages are there, but challenges are also there. So those challenges were like stiction. What is stiction? Stiction is basically when we have already seen, like here, these are the free hanging structures which are made by surface micro machining. So how these have been made? This particular like cantilever, this material is called the structure material. And this gap initially is filled with a material which is sacrificed, means which is removed. This is called a sacrificial material, and bottom is the silicon. So when we are removing this particular sacrificial material, at that time, due to the capillary forces, if you are using the liquid media, so due to the capillary forces, surface tension forces, this thing will get stuck to the substrate silicon, and your device will be of no use. So this particular thing, this particular problem is called the stiction problem. So this is very common. This is called process stiction. Another stiction is the transport stiction. That is basically if once these devices are released, but finally when it is after packaging and all, it is going for the user to use. So at that time, if during the transportation and other things, because lot of jerk and other things will be there, so this will get stuck. This is called the process stiction. So device will be failed. So this so process stiction now has been considerably removed with the evolvement of with the development of the new technologies like vapor HF technology. They are using vaporized, this is a gas, basically gaseous hydrogen fluoride they are using to remove this thing, so that there should be no liquid. This capillary forces and surface tension forces will be almost zero, almost is totally zero, because there is no liquid. So you can very easily release the structures. So another the major problem, or you can say the challenges for the designer to design all these devices, this surface microemission devices, is the residual stresses. So this is one of the very big area where a lot of research have already happened and still is going on, because this particular thing, residual stresses, are every time they are new, and for each foundry it will be different wherever you are processing, because so many layers, so many processes are there, and there are different process parameters are there, so they will change, and due to that change, so for each foundry it has to be tuned. So a lot of efforts have to be made by the process engineer to completely, it is never possible to completely remove the stresses, but yes, to compensate these stresses to make the device functionable, so that thing is required. So this is also one of the major challenges, and this is connected with the material properties, because here the deposition and the structural materials are usually polysilicon. For all these devices we are using polysilicon materials, but nevertheless it's not only something, metal and other things also people will use. So that properties are also not means that also has to be taken care during the design of the device and the process design. So advanced technologies have vapor HF for removing your sacrificial materials like oxide and all. Xenon difluoride has come into the market now for isotropically etching the silicon, where silicon is the sacrificial material. Then polyimide based sacrificial materials now people, because these things have come to get rid of the stiction problem, because they don't require liquid. So when liquid is not required, so you will be free from stiction. So based on that, these technologies have evolved. Okay, so in the globally, if you see across the world, so these processes like IC technology. So MEMS is now, early days people are saying MEMS is non-standard, but now it is not so. Now MEMS processes are standardized, and across the globe, if you see particularly for surface microemission, if we talk, the two fabs, like one is MCNC in USA, and then the Sandia labs, that is Sandia Ultraplanar Multi-Level MEMS Technology Summit, the short name. Like here MEMS is the multi-user MEMS processes. So they have standardized the processes. They will they have released their design rules and PDKs, so people can use and they can design their micro devices. They can send to them, and they will charge for fabrication of those devices, and you will get your devices at your place. So they have like PolyMEMS is a 3-layer process, and this Sandia process is a 5-layer polysilicon process. This is an extremely complicated process, and they have made like so many hinges, layers, and DLPs, that is DMDs, basically micro mirrors. So many things have been made using this technology by the Sandia labs. So this is a typical example of, this is a typical example. Okay, I think this animation is not working here. Okay, no problem. So this is anyway, it is showing how this cantilever is made. Basically here we have a sacrificial material. First there is a substrate, then we will deposit the sacrificial oxide, then it has to be patterned, then the polysilicon or whatever structural material is there, that has to be deposited, then again it has to be patterned, and then finally you have to release this sacrificial material. This is one layer, single layer process example. You see, I'm sorry because this animation is not working here. So, okay, going to next is the bulk micro machining. So here, okay, so this technology is also has made a lot of real benefits to the MEMS fabrication. So any complex shape you can make using this bulk micro machining, and if you compare it with the surface micro, and this is not sequential. Okay, first surface micro machine was surface micro machining technology was evolved, and then bulk. Everything worked in parallel. If you see the MEMS history, they both worked in parallel only. So bulk micro machining is having the devices are having higher performance or better performance than surface micro machining. Why? This can be very easily understood by an example of accelerometer. Like in accelerometers, we have a proof mass, and that proof mass is hanged with the coombs, or you can say with the other detection. If it is out of plane, you can have another parallel plate in place in the other direction of the proof mass. So because I am talking about capacitive type accelerometers. So in that case, if you see, the basically your acceleration is converted through this proof mass to inertial force. So higher the mass, your higher will be the force, and if that higher force will be there, you can more precisely, you can more accurately, you can measure precisely or more accurately your signals, because higher proof mass will give higher sensitivity to the system. So your sensitivity will be higher. So that, because in the surface micro machining, you cannot increase your proof mass beyond beyond certain limit, because you are depositing there. So there the proof mass, how the proof mass will be fabricated, you will deposit some structural layer, which we have just seen in the previous slides. You have to deposit something, and that deposition is having a limit. You cannot go beyond a few micron, like 1 micron, 2 micron, 5 micron. But here, the same thing, suppose this is a proof mass, just for example, this is a proof mass, then this is your etching. This you are achieving by etching. It is a reverse process. There you are depositing, and here you have already a certain thickness, and that thickness you are etching down to get the desired thickness. So you have a higher higher what we call band, so that you can have the higher thicknesses also. Is very much possible with the bulk micro machining. So here you can get a higher sensitivity if I am talking about the accelerometer, because you can make bigger proof masses. Then second example to prove this thing is, if you talk about your this mechanical switches and all. So there, if you have a thicker mass, then thicker mass will generate higher forces, and due to higher forces, your accuracy will improve in those mechanical switches. So like that, so the performance is better in case of bulk micro machining. Second thing is you can create any type of structure. That is also one of the advantage, because there you are limited by certain things. Here that limit is not there if you are going for dry processes. So here also two variants are there, wet and dry. In wet you have a constraint, you cannot go for any shape, but in dry process you don't have the constraint of shape, you can go for any shape. So this is because this everything has evolved due to a workhorse of MEMS, that is the DRI process, deep reactive ion etching. It is in the 1994 when this process Bosch has invented this process, and after that, lot of devices have come up in the MEMS. So here the challenges are okay. So now if we'll talk about the challenges of bulk micromachining, the problem here is, major problem is, it is not impossible, but this is a problem that the monolithic integration is complex, because here now you have to you are consuming the substrate, and for monolithic integration, because all your IC fab technology, it is a planar technology, and they will not allow you to etch all these things. So you have to design your process flow in such a way that this thing, whenever this etching step or this thing, it should be always be in the last or in the initial is very difficult, but people have demonstrated pre-CMOS and post-CMOS both, but mostly post-CMOS technology will work for CMOS MEMS integration. So it is a complex, it is difficult, not impossible, but difficult. Relatively high production cost. Why this thing has come? Because of these equipments, these technologies are involved. And when you are going for DRI and all, you cannot just use simple silicon substrate. So it's special substrates you have to use that are called SOI wafers, that is the silicon on insulator wafer, so that automatically when your this high aspect ratio etching will stop, it will automatically stop at a particular depth. Suppose I have to etch around 600 micron, then after 600 micron, automatically it should stop. So this is not possible in the normal wafer, because in normal wafer, depending upon the your etch rates and species movement inside the trenches, so sometimes it will etch at 600, sometimes it will etch at 600 and 580, and somewhere it will etch at 610. So that non-uniformity will be there. So this non-uniformity, how it can be overcome? If you are using the SOI wafers, because there at particular 600 depth, there will be an oxide, inbuilt oxide layer, and it will stop, because oxide is having a very good selectivity for the silicon, so it will not etch and it will stop. So that's how the cost is increasing. Your one SOI wafer is around almost, you can say, if your normal wafer is around $50, the SOI wafer is around $300. So it is around 5 to 6 times the higher cost. So in the wafer itself, in the initial substrate itself. So that's how the overall production cost is increasing. Then second thing is you require all these sophisticated equipments like DRI and other things. So advanced technology in this field is SOG, which SOG is silicon on glass. So this technology is very versatile. Actually, this is particularly, it has come up for gyroscopes and accelerometers, mainly gyroscopes, DRGs and other gyroscopes. So here what they are using, there are two technologies are used basically, wafer bonding and then DRI. So glass wafer is used in the bottom, and top we are using the silicon wafer, and then they both wafers are bonded, and then DRI, then mechanic this grinding operation will be done on the silicon to reduce the thickness, and then DRI will be carried out. So like that, this is one of the typical. There are a lot of variants of SOG technologies. I am just telling very basic SOG technology. So they are using like that. So this is the advancement in the bulk micromachining. Another is the SOI MEMS. This I have already described you that what is SOI MEMS, using silicon on insulator. Then screen process, this single crystal reactive etching and metallization. So this technology is not that much evolved, but yes, this also is actually has reduced the number of processing steps. So here what they are using, they will they will etch these trenches, then they will coat these trenches with the oxide, and then they will remove the oxide from here, PCVD oxide from here, and then further they will do etching and metallization. So like it is a, like they call 1 or 2 process, two mass process. That way the advantage is there. Then API-seal for wafer level packaging. This is one of the, I think, latest research which is happening just from past 4 to 5 years. So this is basically for WLP, that is the wafer level packaging processes. This technology is being evolved. So this also has come up due to the involvement of DRI. So similar to surface micromachining processes, MEMS, your bulk micromachining processes also are standardized across the globe. So like MUMS, the MCNC company, they have a foundry. They have made a SOI MUMS, like there they have made a poly MUMS. Here it is SOI MUMS, is a five layer process, mask process, sorry. Then MicroGem, this is from the Microline foundry in the Canada, and then Teledyne also is also Canada. So this is MIDIS. This is basically for all inertial sensors. Basically, because they are specific. This is only for your inertial sensors, and this MicroGem is basically for all like varactors and other things. But SOI MUMS is very general. So if you follow their design rules and based on their design rules, you can just make the design, submit to this foundry, and you can get the device with some cost. So this is the same thing. I think here this also will not work. No issues. Okay. So then this one is the other MEMS fabrication processes. LIGA is basically lithography, LI is lithography, G is the galvanization, and A is the upforming. That is basically here, this is a typically non-silicon based technology. How it works, basically you use a some metallized thing. You can use like silicon and then metal also is possible. Otherwise some metal substrate, and then cast some polymer material, like they are using PMMA, thick polymer material, and then with X-ray radiation, then this particular shape, whatever shape we want to make, so that is exposed, and after that it will be etched, which is developed, that PMMA, and then you fill it with the metal, maybe through electroplating. So like we have a seed layer, and then this will generate here the 3D thing, and then finally removing of this PMMA. So you can get a gear train. So basically this technology has come up mainly to make high aspect ratio metal parts, like very big thick parts when we have to make. Particularly for those things, this thing has come. But the disadvantage is very expensive because of X-ray source and all things are required. So that's why this is not that much in use. But now its lower version has come up, that is called quasi LIGA, or they called as a poor man LIGA also, where in place of X-ray lithography, they are using our normal UV based lithography. But that limitation is there. You cannot go for very thick materials. That this thickness is a constraint there. But UV LIGA is people are now using that. This poor man's LIGA, UV LIGA is being used. Apart from this LIGA, we have other technologies like micro EDM. This is similar to conventional EDM. Here small parts are made using this thing. But here limitation of EDM is you cannot work with 6-inch substrate. You can work only with small substrate, small pieces only you can make. Then laser machining. This is here also that latest technology is basically femto laser machining. Usually this thing is used for the glass substrates. Because for the biomedical applications and all, we have to make like the channels, micro channels and other things. So for that particularly this technology, these things are used. But here the disadvantages of laser machining is typically is that your side profiles, that sidewall profile will not be good, because this is an erosion or something like that thing. So this will not get very sharp features with this technology. And second is MRR is also less. Metal removal rate is also less. It's not that fast. So the another is the focused ion beam machining. So this is also it is not a production thing. This is basically used for FIB is basically used for the diagnosis purposes of the MEMS devices and all, like cutting and then getting TEM analysis and other things. For those purposes, people are using. But some places FIB can be used, like here gallium ions are used. They are bombarded on the surface and to erode this thing. Like sputtering thing. So in sputtering it will deposit it, and here it is a sputteratch like thing will happen. So okay, now coming to my last part of the presentation is our SCL MEMS fab, that what like currently what in which areas we are working here, particularly in this domain, and what are the devices which we have developed till now. So SCL is currently having two fab lines. One is the 8-inch fab line, which is having fully settled for 180 nanometer CMOS technology, all type of digital analog mixed signal devices, CCDs, other things we are making here. And another in parallel, the same area, sharing the same roof, we are having a 6-inch wafer fab line, which is dedicated for MEMS and detector development. We are having all the necessary requirements for the MEMS development, like surface micromachining, bulk micromachining, wafer bonding, and allied processes, which are basic requirements for any MEMS development. So here at SCL, it is not only foundry; it is all the things like design. Starting from the design, wafer fabrication, assembly, testing, packaging, qualification, everything is under one roof. So it is a typical example of an IDM, that is integrated device manufacturer, where you will get all the things under one roof. So that is the major advantage of working in SCL. So we have here developed with the time, we have evolved the basic technologies which are required for the MEMS fabrication. Bulk micromachining, we have the state-of-the-art equipment, and even continuously we are working on the improvement of this equipment also. Surface micromachining, we have the state-of-the-art like wafer HF and polyimide base release processes. Then MEMS specific thin or thick films which are required. So that also, then we have specific lithography, like I have told you, UV Liga and other things. We can do it here. Then wafer bonding processes also are very well established things which are available at SCL. So MEMS process standardization, as I have already talked in previous surface micromachining and bulk micromachining slides. So first, like globally now MEMS process, this is just from last 1 decade. It's not more than that. The MCNC, that MEMS processes were very early, like in 90s they have been established, but that also continuous improvements are there. Very basic thing has started in 1993 or 94 in that time regime. But after that, other foundries and other things, this is just in the last 10 years this development has happened. Because MEMS processes anyway, it is very specific. It is not like CMOS processes where your all things are very well established. You have a particular proper processes are available, and this process is simply you are putting. And like any device I can make using that process. Here it is not like that. Here if you are making a pressure sensor, the process is that process cannot be used to make an acoustic sensor, or that process cannot be used for accelerometer. So for each product, the process is specific. The process is different. Okay, so standardization in that aspect is not that much easy. But yes, we can club, we can group, we can classify those processes for particular domain, for particular type of sensors, which similar type of the conversion, what we call the principles on which the sensors are working, like for resistive sensors, for capacitive sensors, for piezoelectric sensors, we can make the categories. So with that, the process standardization can be made possible. So what advantage we will get with the standardization of the processes? It will provide a low cost, easy access to foundry surfaces and reduce overall time and effort, because it will be a multi wafer process. You can do multiple designs in a same wafer, with using same process. That is the keyword here. Same process will be same. Only process is not one design is having different process. Another. The design, the process has to be same. Only thing is your topologies can be different. It is a cost-effective method of proof of concept fabrication to prove your design, whether your design is workable or not. So it is that's how these things have come up in the other foundries across the globe. So I already discussed the Microgem is a process, standard process given by Microline Foundry. Teledyne has given a Medes process. Silex Microsystem, this is also one of the European fab. They are giving MPW, and MEMSCAP, basically MCNC. So MEMSCAP Foundry, they are giving a MUMS process. At SCL also, we have standardized our processes. It is very similar to the MCNC, that is the MEMSCAP Foundry. So here we call, in SCL, we call these processes as MMPW, that is the MEMS multi-project wafer program. So under this MEMS multi-project wafer program, we have 3 programs. One is the SOI MMPW, second is the piezo MMPW, and third one is the poly MMPW process. So SOI MMPW is targeted to fabricate the devices bulk micro machining technology using like all resistor type, piezo resistive type sensors and other things, but nevertheless only piezo resistive, like we can capacitive gyroscope. We have clubbed these 4 things in a same wafer, you can say in 4 quadrants. These all processes share the same process to develop the device. Similarly, piezo MUMs also share the same process to develop acoustic sensor, PMOT, vibration sensor, and after. Polymers, here we are using 2-layer process, like MMPW is having 3-layer, and Summit, that is Sandia Labs, they are having 5-layer processes. We have a 2-layer polysilicon process, and we have demonstrated making of cantilever, accelerometer, gyroscope, and other things in the same wafer using the surface micro machining of the polysilicon material. These are few MEMS products which have been made and developed, and few of them already flown in the space. The various domains are like physical sensors. We have worked with pressure sensors of different ranges, starting from 1 bar to 10 bar, 20 bar, 30 bar, with different packaging methodologies, all in-house developed at SCL. And all these packages also packaging technologies as well as the fabrication and design. Then then we have developed the temperature sensor. These are platinum based RTDs. Then we have developed the humidity sensors. These are capacitive based parallel plate capacitor based humidity sensors with a specific material which is very much sensitive to the humidity. Then we have developed the acoustic sensor, which are piezoelectric based sensors working on using aluminum nitride as a piezoelectric material. Then in the inertial category, we have successfully developed and delivered our accelerometers and G switches to measure the shock forces. And then in the chemical category, we have worked in the gas sensors and the cantilevers to detect the RDX and other TNT and other things, to detect those all the chemicals. This cantilever, this piezoresistive based technology have been successfully demonstrated. For biomems, which we are working with PGI here in Chandigarh, and as well as AIIMS, Delhi, and in Kolkata also, one of the university. So we have developed a few sensors to detect the malignancy, early stage malignancy, and the gut mucosa, quality of the gut mucosa. For those purposes, we have developed these sensors. In RF domain, we are working along with our sister concern, which is SAC Ahmedabad, for the development of various RF components, to miniaturize those components so that to make a complete system based on MEMS. in micropropulsion, we are working with our other centers like LPSC and LPSC Bangalore to develop all this microthruster and vapor light. These also based on all different categories like solid microthrusters, then liquid microthrusters, and electrospray thrusters, and microvalves. These are also like different building blocks are there when they have to be complete. They have to set on in the same substrate, and the complete micropropulsion thing can be made. So these are all the products which on which we are currently working, or some have been already delivered, and advancements are on the progress. So then this is, I think, the last slide. So like now, so here also, like, we are not stopping just at MEMS. So now the next is the NEMS, which is the nano electromechanical systems. So why nanotechnology is so interesting? Because at molecular level you can control the things. So that is one of the beauty in the NEMS technology. And why I think NEMS is very much possible where MEMS facilities are available, because already planar lithography we are working already in 1 micron or less. So nano region things are possible, very much possible with like deep UV and other things. Then this material nanosynthesis of the materials is also a very promising field where people are working, and now it can be converted to the batch fabrication technologies using our silicon substrate itself, like nanotube, carbon nanotubes. Like people now have demonstrated CNT based pressure sensors, so which is having a gauge factor of around 1000. So if you see the conventional strain gauges, they are having a gauge factor of 1 to 5. And then MEMS based gauges, they're having a gauge factor of 180 to 200, and CNT based they're having a gauge factor of 1000. So that is the beauty of this the upgradation of these technologies. So in NEMS, like in the nanotechnology, like we're getting very good sensitivity in the synthesis. This shows how this technology can be. And another very good example is like gigahertz NEMS resonator. Okay, so this all due to the scaling effect only, because otherwise this much frequency resonator is not possible with the bigger structures. So this is possible only with the micro technologies or micro things, like either it is MEMS or it is a NEMS. So similarly, I think the Berkeley, they have made a NEMS motor also. This is a CNT based basically. Then where it is very much possible, because now we have a new computation device like neural quantum computing, and so many other fields have come into the market. So it is not only a dream. Yes, this dream has already come true. Now people are working in this area. Okay, still for the commercialization as a product, the things still have to be worked further. But yes, the work is already started now, and people are working in this area, and now devices are also coming with all these things. I think with this I will end up my presentation. So now the forum is open for any questions or whatever I can share further. I will be really happy to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jaspreet, for such exhaustive, we can say, presentation about fabrication technologies for MEMS. And, in fact, that can be used for other devices also. So forum is open for questions, and participants can write their questions in Q&A section. So there are a couple of questions, Dr. Jaspreet, in Q&A section. You can see it. Can you see it? Q&A section, yeah. It is, yeah.
Where I need to go, sir?
You need to open the window, training one, where you shared your presentation.
Okay, I think that is closed somehow.
No, you just bring your cursor upside.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Right side, you see right side.
Right side is okay. Assign keyword. Yes. It is there. Yes, sir. 5 questions are there. Yeah. Okay, so first question is, can we make flexible electronics out of MEMS technology? Is there any initiative taken so far in this regard in SCL? Okay, so this question is by Mansa. Okay, so the answer is yes, it is possible. Flexible electronics with MEMS technology is very much possible. Like I have already, I think in some slide I was mentioning about the wearable things. So with the very thin silicon substrates, one thing is possible with the flexible electronics. Other thing is we can use MEMS based components, and those components can be put on the flexible substrates, and then it is possible. At SCL, we had demonstrated the second part, what I have told you, because there was a one project which has come from one of the lab of DRDO. I cannot disclose that name. So they want to monitor the pressure distribution across the aerofoils. In the aerofoils and all, they are very specifically designed wings are there. So you cannot put planar things there. So because otherwise your shocks will create. So we require very it has to be very conformal sensing has to be there, and that is possible only if you can have a flexible sensors over that. So for that we had demonstrated using a flexible PCBs we had used and put our sensors and demonstrated that thing. So the first thing is not yet done, but second thing, yes, we had carried out. That is, I think I have made clear. If any other doubt is there, you can please tell me. So can I go to next question, please?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, so next question is by Mr. R.N. Vishwanath. In MEMS device, selected materials are used as cantilever. If so, how it sense and quantify the surroundings so accurately, particularly in biomedium? Yes, very good question. So, selected materials are used as cantilever. I think what I understand here is these cantilevers basically are not, these cantilever materials are not the sensing materials. They act as a first carrier, and over that we are depositing the receptive layers, and those which we functionalize those cantilevers, and then those functionalized, the materials which are functionalized, they are basically attracting those other things because they are so much selective. Those coatings are so much selective that it particularly that component, like for example of like if I have to sense TNT, so it will only sense TNT. Other things, if it is there, then with the electronics, with the signal conditioning electronics, we have to weed out that signals. So for that classification, complete classification thing, we have to put that software has to be developed accordingly, and then accordingly those signals can be wiped out. So that is the way when we have done this one of the project with IIT Bombay and PSA office in New Delhi. So that was basically for the detection of RDX and TNT. So like that we had done, like we have made a 4 cantilever array, and then each cantilever is selective to particular type of coating, particular type of this materials. Like suppose the one is only that thing which is sensitive to RDX, the another one which is sensitive to the TNT, and third one which is sensitive to the another one. So that only will sense. So it is not the cantilever material, but it is the coating material which is our coating. Cantilever will act, will basically it will increase the signal, what we call amplify the signal, whatever thing is there, so to make us help to detect that signal. So that's how this thing is working basically. So another question is how MEMS can be used as energy harvester. Yeah, so that is basically like cantilevers. So on the cantilevers, this is one of the examples. Cantilever, you put the aluminum nitride coating, and means any piezoelectric material, and when this because this piezoelectric material has a beauty that it can work in both ways. It can sense and it can actuate also. So if the mechanical vibrations are there, shocks are there, so due to those shocks, because this is a piezoelectric material, charge will be generated, and that charge you can convert into the electrical thing, and like that you can make it as energy storage device. That's how these things are working. So that's how this MEMS, basically MEMS are used as an energy harvester. People are working on aluminum nitride. From IIT Roorkee, one professor has worked with us quite long earlier. So they are making aluminum nitride based cantilevers for energy harvesters. Next question is, MEMS respond to gas molecule temperature, pressure changes, vibrational changes, chemical bonding, etc. My question was how it functions. Okay. Yeah, so that is the whatever your non-desired signals. So those non-desired signals we will, because see that we do tests like that only. Suppose because my cantilever, the coatings, they are basically responding to say humidity also. So that but I don't want humidity signals. I want the signals which basically particularly like I want to detect RDX only. It should show RDX things only. So how we will do? Like first we will not put RDX. We will just test this cantilever for humidity. How much that signal is coming. So that thing we will train our system, our classification system, and will give that if this much signal and this pattern is coming, so it will automatically read out that signal and actual things can be measured. So another question is, which lithography technique is used in SCL for 180 nanometer CMOS fabrication? Is it UV lithography or any other maskless? It is deep UV in 180 nanometer in one of the equipment. 2 proton or in. So okay, so I think I have answered that question. So it is deep UV lithography and UV, both are there. E-beam, anyway, we are now we are starting working with the E-beam lithography also in future. So next question is cold welding is a problem in MEMS devices? If so, what can be the solution to eliminate or reduce it? Yeah, so that cold welding, if I understood correctly, is you are calling the same thing what I talked about, the stiction, the transport stiction. So for that, particular people, what people are using, we have not done. Some people are using, they have like from IIT Madras, one madam is there in Akshi Bhattacharya. So they have developed some coatings. So those coatings can be put on the cantilevers, and then it will not stick to the during the transportation and other things, and it will not get stuck or weld, what we call. It will not stuck to those things. If I am understanding this cold welding as a transport stiction, then that is the answer. If it is something else, you please let me know. So next question, how to make MEMS device radiation resistance? Okay. So for radiation resistance, we had done one work on pressure transducers. So what we had done, we have tested our pressure sensor in the gamma chamber, and we checked the response pre and post. So before radiation exposure and after radiation exposure, what we found out that after exposure to the radiation, some charges are entrapped in the dielectric layer of like here silicon dioxide. In that, some charges are entrapped, and due to that, the sensitivity of the sensor is reduced. So very simple treatment is, you just give a heat cycle, a thermal cycle to the device for half an hour, and then all the charges, whatever the trapped charges, they will get out, and the sensor will regain. That's what we had found out. And then based upon that, we have incorporated a micro heater in the sensor itself, so that whenever it will see, it will go to radiation, automatically that heater will get switched on, and it will make the system, it will regain its initial performance. So that is one of the study which we had done and published one of the paper on based upon this study. So this is one of the method to cope up the things. The another things for the radiation hardening is, I think here maybe the packaging or other things we can do. But not much of the work on radiation hardening is, yes, definitely has not been done, particularly in MEMS. So people are like shielding the devices only in case of MEMS. That is that also can be done, but I'm not very sure that will how much it will help, because in MEMS the sensor has to talk with the environment. That is also one of the things. So you have to make your device in such a way, because you cannot protect it, you cannot cut from the environment. So it has to work in the environment, it has to be achieved. So that is one of the way what we found out in the pressure sensors, and we incorporated to put a micro heater to regain its performance if it will see the radiation effects. That's how we had done here.